Hey guys, welcome to another Ableton video tutorial. For today's video I want to talk about sound design. I like to break sound design into two main categories, synthesis and sampling. Both of them are interesting and they each have their own advantages, but for this article I want to focus on sampling, and more specifically how you can utilize the different warp modes in Live to transform found sounds into interesting musical gestures. I'm fascinated with the idea of using found sounds in my music. For one, they're not inherently musical, but with a good ear and some imagination, you can take a sound that might have originally been perceived as noise and turn it into a rhythmic musical phrase. More importantly, creating music from samples and found sounds that you've created will help you to craft your own unique sound. So let's check it out. Here is my raw sample. Right now I have it in Complex Pro, which I find to be the most transparent mode. This is the mode I use whenever I'm warping tracks for a DJ set. But from the perspective of sound design, and in this case creative sample manipulation, I'm not after fidelity. So let's check out some of the other warp modes to see what kind of interesting audio artifacts we can create. The next clip is the same loop, but I've stretched it slightly to fit into one bar of 4/4 time at 135 beats per minute. So here's Complex Pro. And here's Texture. It has a slightly more gritty sound. There is also Tones. This is best suited for tonal instruments with a clear pitch, and you can adjust the grain size in this mode. Or Repitch. This is similar to how vinyl repitches when you change the speed. You can hear that I've stretched the end of the sample quite a bit. And there is also Complex. This was the highest quality warp mode before Complex Pro. But I think I like Texture the most, so let's stick with that for now. Now that we've found a warp mode that we like, let me see if I can shuffle the warp markers around to help turn this loop into something more musical. I'll turn on a bass drum clip so you can keep track of the downbeat. Okay, now we have a clip with a nice rhythm to it. And as you saw, I just moved all the transients in the clip so that they fell on either an 8th note or a 16th note. But sometimes I like to create slow and gradual changes in my music. Below, I've gone through the same process that I just demonstrated, but over a number of different clips. So in one clip I set a warp marker, then I duplicated that clip, set another warp marker, and so on, until I finally reached a fully quantized version. I was able to stretch this out over 5 clips. So now when I want to introduce this part into my music, I can first bring it in its raw form, where it's kind of off kilter, and then I can slowly quantize it over time, so that you don't really notice when it finally locks into the groove, kind of sneaks up on you. Again, I'll turn on the bass drum clip so that you can keep track of the downbeat. That's all pretty cool, but now let's take a look at the Beats warp mode. Beats mode treats audio samples similar to Rex files for those of you that are familiar with Reason. The basic principle is that you slice the sample into segments, and by moving the segments closer together or further apart, you can change the tempo without changing the quality of the transient. But there is no stretching of audio involved in this process. So to find that, we just go down to the warp mode drop-down menu and select Beats. Beats mode has a few more sub-parameters that you can mess with. The first one, located below the warp mode, is the preserve menu. This tells Live how to cut the segments. You can cut at the transient or at a specified rhythm. The following clips have each been cut into a different preserve setting. Let's have a listen. Now if you significantly slow down the tempo of the original sample, then there will be some space between each segment. And so the next subparameter, the transient loop setting, tells Live what to do with that space, and it can either be left alone or filled in. The first mode is off, and it's indicated by an arrow pointed to a line. This will play each segment through one time and then stop, inserting silence between the segments. The second mode is loop forward, and this is indicated by two forward-facing arrows. It fills in the space by repeating the segment from the beginning, creating a stuttering effect. The final mode is loop back and forth, and it's indicated by two arrows pointing in opposite directions. It's similar to the second mode, but when looping, it oscillates between forward and reverse, and this yields a smoother stuttering effect. There is one more subparameter located right next to the loop mode, and that is the transient envelope. This parameter sets the duration of the volume fade applied to the end of each segment. Think of it as the release time for each segment. At 100, the entire segment will be played, and at 0, it will create a short transient-like effect. So let's go back to our 16th note slice setting and hear how that sounds. The transient envelope is really fun to manipulate in real time, and it can help to add movement to an otherwise static loop. Unfortunately, you cannot map this parameter to a MIDI controller, but you can always set up a track for resampling and then capture a manual performance of it. So here I've created another audio track. The audio from is set to resample, and I'm going to arm it to record, but I'm going to turn the monitoring off. Alright, let's see what we ended up with. Let me bring up the volume a little bit. And as you can see, we were able to capture all the movement from modulating the transient envelope. Just for fun, let's go back up to the earlier clips where I changed the rhythm over time. But let's listen to them in beats mode with a short transient envelope. I think this will make the changing of the rhythm more apparent. So to wrap up this video, we talked about using Live's time stretching and warp modes to help transform your unique field recordings into more musical gestures. Our next video will continue on this path, demonstrating some of the other ways that you can exploit Live's audio clip parameters to get cool results. Alright, until next time.